the clock ticking, the House is scheduled to vote today on raising the debt ceiling.
That's the amount of money the U.S. can actually borrow. And right now, to avoid potentially catastrophic default, the deadline to get it done is by Monday.
So we've been paying close attention to this, as have so many of you. Joining us from Washington to talk it over is Republican Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis, who represents Staten Island and South Brooklyn. So good to see you. Thank you for being here to talk about this.
Morning.
So you're scheduled to vote today, right? There's been a lot of back and forth and discussions around give and take, and this is a negotiation after all. So will you support the deal?
I will support the deal. And as the Rolling Stones said, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And in this case, we need to prevent a default that would create a fiscal calamity, not only for our economy, but for seniors, for veterans, for our military. But we also need to put our House, the fiscal trajectory on a path for sanity. And that's exactly what this bill does, because it not only spends less next year than we did last year, but it also caps spending at 1% for the next 6 years and puts in place a number of checks and balances to ensure that the executive branch isn't spending money without cutting from somewhere, because as we know, Biden, through executive order and multiple rules, was spending over $1.5 trillion on his own without even any input from Congress. And it also makes sure that we focus on the budget going forward. We have an appropriation process next, and without passing a budget, it will continue to cut spending year after year. So I think it's some pretty good parameters. Also repeals the money that President Biden was going to use to hire additional IRS agents this year. So far, from his plan to hire 87,000 IRS agents, there were no hires last year. There will be no hires this upcoming year, and we will continue to fight that year after year. And it also puts in place work requirements to help lift people out of poverty and make them less dependent on public benefits.
The deal lifts the debt ceiling for the next 2 years, but puts some limits on some new spending. So there's pushback from some Republicans, including Lauren Boebert and Chip Roy. Let's listen to what they had to say.
This is an unlimited debt increase, allowing him to spend as much money as he wants through the end of his term.
Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal.
So do you agree with what they had to say?
Well, it's simply untrue. As a matter of fact, we put checks and balances in place so the president cannot continue to spend on his own. And also, we control the House of Representatives, which means we will be making sure that all the appropriation bills that go forward are fiscally responsible. Remember, now that we're at the table, the Republicans, there are no more crazy omnibus, massive inflationary spending bills. We've put an end to that. We've also put an end to President Biden's budget for this year, where we plan to increase spending once again. We've said no to that. We've said no to increasing taxes, another $5 trillion. So my colleagues, look, while I would have liked to have seen more cuts, right, we have to acknowledge that we are only 1/3 of the federal government. The Democrats control the Senate, and they control the White House as well. So coming out of a negotiation, we did pretty well, considering we are only 1/3 of the pie, and this is just the first step. The budget process comes next, the appropriation comes next after that, and guess what? We put triggers in place in this deal that would require additional cuts should we not pass a budget, which forces both parties to come together and continue to work out a deal that's best interest for the American people.
There's been talk about and reports that about maybe 50 Republicans might vote no on the bill overall. But like you said, it is a negotiation here. So what do you think of your Republican colleagues who are going to vote no on the bill because they didn't get what they wanted?
I think, look, we have a responsibility to govern at the end of the day. People elected us. They don't expect us to default and send the American economy into a fiscal mess. We're talking about people's retirement funds, pension funds, savings. We cannot play games with that. We've never done a default in the nation's history. We've held out as long as we could. We blew past 2 deadlines